Hi, Misha here, and you read the title, so we're going to take a look at the Romanian CGR rifle, imported by Century Arms, chambered for 7.62x39. And I think by now we've got a pretty decent rhythm worked out. In the first video, part 1, I give my initial impressions after unboxing. Do a little comparing, talk about any history, talk about features, initial pros and cons, and then in the second video, second part, I, along with Fox and maybe J-Ro too, take it out to the range and see how it performs. So this is part 1. A lot of you asked opinions on this, and we were hoping to do it before the holidays, but even though the order was in, holidays delay things. So, well, we're doing it at the beginning of 2023, and this is fresh off the UPS truck, so we're going to unbox it. And just for those on YouTube, this is not a marketing thing, not selling. This is a gun review. That's it. Not something I'm selling. And of course, as always, if you could, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you'd like to help support the channel, check out the link to the Patreon page. Let's crack it open. A simple cardboard box. The early Romanian guns came in an even simpler one, but for a time, Century was doing very elaborate print color boxes, and that just seemed kind of Well, we're kind of splitting the difference. Cardboard box, but we do get foam lining. It's fine. This is meant to be an economy gun. One thing that cracks me up, even though it has a little protector over the handle, it punctured the boot. Just goes to show you these things are sharp when it comes to transporting across the ocean. Chamber flag. Didn't come with a hang tag. Card. Paper manual, which we don't see all that often anymore. So, okay. And one, what looks to be a 30-round palm mag. Century bought a bunch of these a couple of years ago. They like throwing them in, plus they do count as 3 U.S. parts under 922R, which, while I'm not too concerned about 922R for civilian at-home ownership, for a company selling guns, it actually is important. So yeah, here we have our gun. Let's get it out and go forward. At first glance, a very classic AKM, known as the PM63 in Romania. We have a standard 1mm stamped receiver. The finish appears to actually be kind of an oxide bluing rather than a phosphating. Takes a standard AKM buttstock, standard pistol grip. This is the commercial stock, obviously installed by Century. It's their ribbed butt plate. It does have a polymer pick rail on top. Safety, standard handle, standard adjustable sight, slab side, standard handguard. This is obviously the wood version. They also do sell a version with polymer furniture. Standard AKM length gas system. It does have a cleaning rod under the barrel. It does have a bayonet lug, which somewhat surprises me. A lot of Century guns haven't recently. And we have a threaded barrel with removable muzzle device, the sugar scoop, the slant compensator, of course adjustable front sight post. And it is claimed that the front trunnion and the barrel are both forged. So take that for what you will. And flipping it over, we quickly see why we have this top cover screwed to our... Flipping it over, we quickly see why there's a pick rail on the top cover, because there is not a side rail. And when these were announced, and before they hit really the market, people were asking who made these. it seemed clear that they were not from the Romarm, Rat Mill, the Cugir factory, but Cugir is a city, and they actually were made in Cugir, but by Nova Modul. And some, I'm sure, recognize the name, others, yeah, maybe they haven't. But actually, not only have we had guns from them before, AKs from them before, we've reviewed a couple on this very channel. So let's talk about the history, brief as it is, of this company. Nova Modul was officially incorporated in Romania in the city of Cugir at the tail end of 1994, December 30th to be exact. It was set up to make parts and sub-assemblies for the Romanian automotive industry, at least primarily. There was felt to be a need. And in 2000, it expanded, going to a larger facility. But in 2001, the domestic auto market took a downturn. And this got Nova Modul to kind of think outside the box, and they started exporting to Western Europe, mostly components for, again, automobiles, some gears and crankshafts, things of that nature. Parts and components and sub-assemblies. And for a minute, that's kind of where they were at. But in 2009, they obtained permission to manufacture firearms components, parts, and firearms themselves. And this actually saw the company kind of go two different directions, two sister companies, Nova Modul and Nova Grupp. Grupp would kind of keep on with the auto side of things for the most part, and Modul would start looking into the firearms industry. At first, building parts, but in 2014, it started looking into making its own designs. And in 2015, Chiappa announced an upcoming gun, which started appearing here the next year. That was the PAC-9.
PAC-9.
That PAC-9 was the first Nova gun we saw. It was a 9mm with a 6 1/4-ish barrel. And believe it or not, even though they were very cheap, in our experience, they ran quite well. But the big kind of concern people had is they had a big polymer buffer in the back. And it seems like Nova was really dedicating more for the civilian, the sporting market. There were a few military things they were making, for example, PKM bipods, but for the most part, you're looking at civilian guns. Well, in 2017, they started partnering with Century Arms, same as here, and they announced another product. NAC-9. The NAC-9 was basically a larger version, kind of a Draco-sized version of the PAC-9, and continued on, and we reviewed it, and it too worked very well. Now, this information comes from the Nova website itself, so take it for what you will. They claim that their goal is to expand and continue to modernize and have their own products. To that end, they said that in 2018 they bought 4 state-of-the-art CNC machines, and they expanded their employees from around 24 earlier on up to nearly 70 by this time. So they would seemingly have expanded. They're still in Cugir. And they started to get into other product lines, including a .22 rifle and a 9mm rifle. And then in 2021, their first 7.62x39 rifle came out, the RAK1, which over here is our CGR. And these are coming over from Century Arms. Is kind of an alternative to the WASR10 made at the original factory. And these are definitely not made at the original factory. They're made at a civilian factory over there, kind of like PSA or whatever you like. But they are a pretty attractive price point for this day and time. Well under $1,000. And if they work, if they're worth a damn, some people are considering them. We're starting to see some entry-level, economy-level AKs appear again. Recently we looked at the Pioneer Sporter, the PAC AKM, which it was holding up really well until something just happened this week, which it's going to make for an interesting video, but that's neither here nor there. You also see Zastava's guns, and of course in America you have the Palmetto State guns for that price point. So at least we're starting to see a return to several options if you want to spend under $1,000 for a Kalashnikov. But is this worth the money? Because it doesn't matter how cheap something is, if it's kind of crappy, not worth it. And, you know, Nova Modul's website seems like they want and like they care. And some civilian companies like WBP have proven themselves. But this is still very new. Let's check it out. First, I'm not going to start grabbing a ton of mags. We can do that at the range. That's a good thing for episode 2. I grabbed the nearest metal mag, which is, I don't know, one of the Korean or Polish ones. But it clicked in and fits with the... Let's see if there's any wiggle or wobble. No, pretty tight. So that one at least clicked in. One thing I'm actually very curious about, though, is this bayonet lug. It actually looks a little odd. Let's see if it will mount a bayonet. So the first one I grabbed was this very classic kind of large pommel Romy. It doesn't want to go on. Let me try another one. Here's the next one that was just close to hand, and it too, it starts to go and then kind of jams up here. Off camera, I'll play with it a bit more. I don't want to waste a ton of time. But yeah, so far the lug is not working so great. But there were some WASRs back when that were a bit oversized or were kind of picky on their bayonets. So it's possible that a different bayonet, a more worn one, will fit okay. But again, it's a minor point. Let's move on. Since we've been shooting the KP-104 all afternoon, kind of seemed interested to bring the WASR10 Para back out.
Love it.
Of course, the natural rifle to compare this to is the Romanian WASR10. Here's a relatively recent production example. We've got the wire folder on it, but otherwise it's pretty stock. I will say just picking them up and flipping them around, the WASR does feel a little heavier. And you can tell this is that more matte blue finish. This is more of a phosphate. Both have 16¼ inch barrels. I don't know if this is chrome lined. This definitely is. Cleaning rods. Say in a minute about the lug. Here's the one on the WASR. Here's the one on the Nova Modul. It's different. This seems smaller, stubbier. This seems a little bit, different. And this has older handguards with the palm swell. A lot of the newer ones don't. Of course, that's just furniture. Same length rifle gas system. Same style of rear sight. This does have the Warsaw Pact side rail. This has no rail, so again we have the top cover. Not a big fan of that. It's tight right now, but yeah. Notice this has a rib top cover. This is predominantly smooth. This does have XY stamps, as does this. One funny thing, this has a flat barrel pin. This has kind of a rivet looking barrel pin. I recall that from the original 9mm, that they kind of use what looks more like a rivet as a barrel pin. I presume it holds up fine. It just strikes me as a little odd. What else? They are similar in the broad strokes. Flipping them over, the safety on the Nova is a different shape. Look at the trim here, the lines in the smooth versus here. This is more rounded, this is more sharp. This one feels a little bit thinner. Mag catch feels a little bit thinner on the Nova too. This one has a standard AKM pattern lightning cut bolt carrier. This one does not, just smooth, something that would have been done to save on money. I'm skipping a couple machine steps. It's for the gas blocks. This would appear to be a cast one, but that's okay. Most modern Romanian militaries are cast anyway. Not a lot of adornment or lightning cuts for the front sight base. We do have more on the WASR, especially in the rear here. Just, you know, you can tell where they skipped some machining steps on the Nova. Now, one benefit some people have pointed out is this has Magwell dimples. And the WASR, for the longest time, does not. However, on the underside, they're the same. Notice this small dimple here, and an even smaller dimpler. There we go. Here. And these Magwell dimples on the sides, they might look okay at first, but actually, in some ways, they kind of bug me more than the slab side. Let me explain. SAR1.
Good as new.
Yeah, practically. Probably looks about the same considering how these look new out of the box.
Pretty much.
Here's an SAR1 that came in the store that's been in a video or two. It's not my original, but it works for this purpose. Look at this Magwell dimple. Now look at this one. This is a military style AKM Magwell dimple. This is not. Much smaller. And if you look on the underside, you'll notice the dimple under here is much wider. That's because the SAR1s were among the last rifles to come in with double stack magwells for reasons. This, just like the WASR, comes in and has to be cut out. Now, Sentry is doing a really nice job. Edges are a little sharp. But these Magwell dimples, they're just not correct. Almost to the point where I'd rather not have them at all than so wrong. They actually remind me of like a pill shape. Flipping the SAR1 and the CGR over. Yeah, the CGR is definitely lighter. Now part of that is probably the Sentry wood. It's known for being light. Part of it's probably not having the side rail. I said I'd show the other side here. Dimple. And even these XY stamps, they're fine. But basically my point is this receiver, you can tell it's a 21st century commercial receiver. Might be a very good one, I don't know. I'm just saying it's not a military style built with comm block parts, but they don't all have to be. I'm just pointing out details. Of course, when the SAR1s came in, bayonet lugs were not allowed on civvy guns. Neither were threaded barrels, but this one was threaded. Again, and you can see it has the flat top gas block. It was near to hand, so I just thought I'd bring it out. What do you think externally? Which look do you like the best? That's about all we can tell from the outside. So the next step, we need to crack this open. And because we're on YouTube, let me do that and be right back. Alright, got the guts out. And like the previous 9mm, thankfully this is at least a hinged top cover for keeping your, move these out of the way, keeping your rail at least reasonably thin. And like the 9s before, when you put it up, it actually pushes your rear side up. So the best thing to do is go ahead and flip it over. There you go. So it's a semi-proprietary top cover. When you're working on these, make sure this doesn't come slamming down on your hand. These edges, quite sharp. The rail is plastic or polymer too, by the way. Looking inside. Again, I've not looked at this before, so standard trigger. What else? Yeah. Pretty standard inside to an AK. Here's our feed ramp. Simple, unadorned. Rivet work. Standard rear trunnion here. As you saw in the 9mm firing video, the Nova Modul triggers are actually quite light, but of course I believe this would have a US trigger in it for compliance. Could be wrong. Here is a recoil spring. Again, it looks fine, but you can tell with the way the button and ledge are done, that's not the way the militaries are. It's just different. Not better or worse, just different. And here is our bolt group. Very aggressive fluting, lightning cuts on that bolt stem. Free floating. Yeah, very noticeable there. Of course, the carrier probably never was full auto. And has kind of a somewhat rough finish. I'm not sure if that's just the finishing or the metal polishing, probably a little of both. Trackway here. Interesting, it's kind of blocky. Typically on an AK, this front piece is pretty round. This is, well, it has flat edges. That's definitely from a casting, but again, that's okay. Russia and other nations have been using cast carriers since the 70s. And then our pistons up here, and it does have some wiggle, which you do want, as I've said in multiple videos. So, not a lot I can tell about this carrier group until we get it out and shoot it. I mean, I can tell you that it's decidedly commercial parts, but also nothing jumps out at me immediately as an alarm bell. But it's really hard to tell anything just, looking at it like this. But hey, for those people that didn't like it, at least you don't have a big block in the back like on those 9mm guns. Now they had them as spacers so they could use a standard length receiver. The rivet work is fine. Nothing to write home about either way. With the bolt group out, it is quite light. Not suspiciously light, but it is pretty light. Well, let's get her back together and have a couple of final thoughts, and then we'll wrap up part 1. The CGR is clearly not built by the original Cugir arsenal, the military arsenal, and few if any parts would have come from it too. It does look like the parts were made in a different factory, and for the most part they look like exactly what they are, commercial parts for a commercial gun for the civilian market. That's not a condemnation, it's just an observation. The WASR, of course, the earlier ones, like the 1063s, are actually built with military parts from service rifles. Newer ones tend to be built with modern parts, but still in the same factory. They just have a little bit different feel to them. Currently, WASRs are still available, and the price-wise, there's not a big difference. Some might like the Magwell dimples. That's fair, but like I said, they don't feel correct to me. Some might prefer the blued finish over the more rough park. That's fair too. But I think we can agree that this polymer pick rail on a top cover, even if it is hinged, isn't the ideal solution. There are worse, but there are definitely better. As far as the bolt travel trigger, it's all average. This gun isn't impressing me, but it's also not immediately giving me alarm bells. It's one of those guns that's going to be made or broken based on how well it shoots and how well it holds up. Normally I would be extremely skeptical of anything very new, and I still am interested to see, but with that previous good experience with the PAC-9 and NAC-9 from Nova, that gives me a little bit of predetermined good feelings. However, those were 9mm blowback guns. This is a true 7.62x39 gas piston rotating bolt gun. So a lot more going on there. And the company is very new at doing these. We'll just have to see. I think it'll be an interesting range day. And it is a new AK for the US market. Personally, I would still get a WASR. WASR is the most proven gun, along with the previous SAR1. Those things have been around for a very long time. But maybe Century knows something we don't, and maybe we should start looking to other imports. Maybe Cugir, who knows? I'm speculating. So what do you think? I will say, at least on my example here, everything seems tight. There's no wiggle in the buttstock. Handguard. Top cover fits well. Safety isn't too tight or too loose. Magazines, the two I tried at least, fit fine. We'll do a lot more fitting at the range. Bolt travel's a little rough, but not gritty. Just needs to be shot. And everything seems pretty straight. I don't notice the front sight being adjusted over much at all. The slant brake fits fine. The gas tube doesn't have a lot of wiggle and play to it. Oh, here's one. I didn't notice this. Check out this takedown for the gas tube. Look at that versus this. That is a very different feeling part. Just here to point things out. We'll see. But again, people were curious about it, so we aim to please, and we'll definitely take her out, run a few rounds through it, see how it does. I'll probably again leave it with Fox for a few months, see how it holds up. Again, this formula seems to be working very well. Not a lot of history. This is very much a civilian gun, but you know how much we like WBP, and that's kind of where they started. So it's not an automatic death sentence to a firearms maker to be civilian, but it does mean they have a lot to prove. Yeah, rivets are fine. See, that barrel of rivet is just odd. Oh well. Good old WASR. But we'd love to hear your comments and thoughts. If you have one of these CGRs, let us know how it shoots. Or if you're just looking at this video and others, let us know how you think it looks. And as always, if you could, please do like, share, and subscribe. Yada, yada, yada. Patreon, yada, yada, yada. Appreciate you tuning in this time, and be sure to tune in for the much more exciting second part. This is Misha. We'll catch you then.